there and do a winter show for expats who are wintering in the sun.
Oh, sure. Yeah, we got McCurdy's Comedy Club down here, and then a couple in Tampa too. So yeah, if you ever come down this
play
way.
theaters.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, those little dinky places, the comedy clubs.
I just lost you.
I know the video one. Oh, here we go. Let me click this here. Okay, I lost you.
Have you got me?
I got audio, no picture.
Here, there's my camera. Where's my camera? There we go. I should be coming up. I was on. Now I'm off.
I know. Just clicked off here for some reason. There we go. Okay, we got you back. Yeah, I just had to hit the record button there. Yeah, I don't know if you have Van Wezel and then Ruth Eckerd Hall, the two places in Tampa and Sarasota. You ever played those? Yeah. Or?
No, they're big, aren't they? I don't play the States, but my book was released in there, and I've been getting a lot of great response for it.
Right. Okay.
So it's I'm on my way down, I think, in the wintertime.
Oh, good. Okay. Let me get the thing going here. I just got a little quick music. I'll do an intro, and we'll do like 15 minutes or so, if that's all right.
Yeah, so sure.
Give me 1 second here. Here we go. Welcome back to our book segment of the program. Great to welcome today. We're looking forward to talking to this man. Great comedian, and he is well known all over Canada, but also in the U.S. as well. And he's got a brand new book out about his life and observations of being on the road as a comedian. So we'll find out about that. The book is called All Over the Map: Rambles and Ruminations from the Canadian Road. And we're joined today by Ron James from up in Canada somewhere. Ron, good to talk with you. Are you in Toronto today?
No, I'm not in Toronto. I'm in the soaking Pacific Northwest. I'm on Vancouver Island, and there's more rain coming. And it's this province at the western edge of Canada has been in the crosshairs of climate change and devastating floods the last couple of weeks in this area called the Fraser Valley. Right. And I mean, it's just like California and Oregon and Washington all summer. They were beset by forest fires, and now we're all in the same boat. They're using this term, an atmospheric river has descended.
I haven't heard that one yet.
And so what a great time to be touring, huh? But the theaters are filled.
I know we got to do this about a week ago, but you were touring in the Maritime provinces, weren't you? About a week ago?
I was out in the Maritimes, and the theaters were packed. I moved out of the clubs 23 years ago and started breaking trail in, as we say, in the soft seaters. And it led to a series for 5 years on national television and a record-breaking 9 one-hour comedy specials. But I have to say, my Canadian dream was sired chasing the American sitcom dream a long time ago in the early 90s in Los Angeles. We went down to do a series with Ronnie Howard's company that we created at the infamous Second City organization that spawned the likes of Dan Aykroyd, John Candy, Marty Short, Mike Myers, who was in the company with me. And I started writing in America and brought that perspective back to Canada after 3 years in that carnivore's arena of nonstop auditioning called Los Angeles. And it was instrumental in focusing my discipline and my dream to become a stand-up comedian, because I was an actor for 17 years. And nothing will hone your battle skills quite like 3 years in Los Angeles. It was instrumental. And
that's what I hear from talking to a lot of people that work out there. It's a little
it's amazing. Yeah. But so there's a lot of that. There's a lot about the allure of the American dream, living so close to the world. I mean, 83% of the Canadian population lives so close to the American border. We're looking up Lady Liberty's skirt.
That's right.
And everybody wants to drink deep of her swollen mammaries and all the goodness that she promises when it comes to showbiz. And of course, there's so many expats. I mean, I think the fourth largest population of Canada lives in Florida in the wintertime.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. Before we get too far in the book, and I want to talk about it, just a little personal thing. Both my grandparents' sides were born in Newfoundland. My mother was born in Nova Scotia, Halifax. So that's a little connection I wanted to talk to you about.
Oh, that's fantastic. Is that right? Born in Halifax. Wow. Well, that's
my grandparents are coming down from Newfoundland, and they lived there for a while. And
Newfoundland. Where were they from?
Oh boy, St. John's, I believe.
St. John's, right? Well, my father's the Newfoundlander. He's from the southwest coast in Burgeo, that peninsula that was, and they were all. I mean, they were all basically um, early 20th century indentured serfs in the cod industry. But there's a great connection as well with Maritimers and what we used to call the Boston States. Many Newfoundlanders and Cape Bretoners and people from Nova Scotia, which was always known as the 14th colony prior to the Revolution.
Right.
But because of the big British military presence there, they didn't have any sympathies. And it's hard to have sympathies for revolutions when the British jackboots on your face.
That's right.
But they moved down to America, and there's a lot of people coming back to Nova Scotia now, claiming property and birthrights that were bequeathed to them by, grandparents or great-grandparents.
Sure.
Yeah,
My grandfather was a steam pipe fitter, so that's he made his living doing that in the Maritime, and then went down to Boston eventually. Then came to Brooklyn, and that's how we wound up in New York. My part of the family, but
cool. So you were raised.
Heard stories about Fundy Bay, I believe, was a place called Fundy Bay, and different names. Bay of Fundy, that's right. Yep. So,
so you were raised in Brooklyn.
I was born in Brooklyn. I was raised in Long Island. My parents, my father was Brooklyn, and my mother lived there.
The Dodgers.
He went to Ebbets Field and all that, sure, yeah.
Nice, boy, Brooklyn in its day.
I missed all that. Just missed it.
I've heard it's just gentrified now, right, with all these hipsters.
But it came back to be kind of a hip place now. Young, whatever they call the yuppies now are living there. But
whatever.
It's different. But anyway, that's what made me, when Jeff gave me your info, I said, I'd love to talk to somebody. And then I read your book, and you realized you were from that part of the country.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a magical place. It really is. And I'm outside of this town called Lunenburg on the South Shore. I have a summer place there. And in fact, my house is rented out right now to this dude from Nantucket who bought property on the point. And he's an 80-year-old, tough, crusty old fella who said, I like working in the woods in the wintertime. And when you come down, we'll do a handshake deal. We'll have a drink of scotch and a toke. What do you think of that?
Well, I wanted to ask you, and your book talks a lot about your great experiences, just, as you said, becoming an actor first, then a comedian. But growing up in Canada, now here in the States, I grew up watching like The Tonight Show and a little bit of the Ed Sullivan Show toward the end of his thing, and the talk show. So you saw like the great comedians like Don Rickles and Bob Hope. What did you grow up watching?
That's exactly what I grew up watching. I mean, there was really no comedy to speak of in Canada. There was Wayne and Schuster, but by the time I got to be in my teenage years, I mean, they were so passé, and they stayed on the air for 17 years. I don't want to.
Sullivan a lot, though, weren't they? Ed Sullivan show.
But I don't want to disparage them. They were the only show, right?
Yeah.
And so I grew up watching, glued to Ed Sullivan, and never missed the Carson show. And then, of course, the summertime replacement shows in the mid 70s when I was coming of age were electric. I mean, we had Richard Pryor.
Oh, sure.
His show, which was incendiary, and
way ahead of its time. I've seen them on YouTube.
Way ahead of its time. I mean, I've got the DVDs now. It's like, whoa, wow. Jonathan Winters had a summertime replacement show, which was genius. I watched the Smothers Brothers. I never missed Laugh In. So all the shows that Americans watch. I mean, the impact of American pop culture on Canadian comedy is well known, which is why so many of us went south of the border. And but I went south of the border and brought the American dream home. But when it comes to comedy, nobody really did it like you guys, and they came of age. And then, of course, Saturday Night Live was an absolutely galvanizing moment in my life. And we used to watch Don Kirshner's rock concerts, and then that went off the air, and suddenly there were these, 7 rebels not ready for prime time, and just blew the seams off the door of funny. And this great Svengali called Del Close, who taught an awful lot of people at Second City in Chicago. There's a documentary on it now. But he said Dan Aykroyd changed the face of comedy when he put a live bass in the Bassomatic.
Yeah, right, Bassomatic.
Bassomatic, and he drank it.
I remember that.
I thought, yeah, man, that's commitment. So it was an incredible impact on us as a boomer. And then we, of course, we read National Lampoon. And so everything that was coming of age in America, we were coming of age with it in Canada too. And Second City, where I started, was the sister company of Chicago, Second City.
Toronto had one, right? Yeah.
Which spawned everybody and anybody who made an impact on comedy in North America over the last 50 years.
Yeah, Martin Short, John Candy, Eugene Levy, all those guys, right?
Absolutely. There were several casts before me, but I was in the company with Mike Myers,
right,
and Donnie Lake, another guy now who's on Space
sure.
with
work with Bonnie Hunt a lot, right?
Yeah, he worked with Bonnie. Yeah, he had a lot of series with her. We're good buddies, and so a lot of us still cross pollinate, and we keep in touch. And of course, Schitt's Creek garnering a record-breaking 7
sure.
last year. And but I decided to write my book from a perspective of the trenches on what it's like to, if you'll pardon the metaphor, which may not stick with your listeners in Florida, but stringing my trap line from one end of the country to the next. And when you when you belong to a country that has the second greatest national landmass on Earth, of which 2/3 is moose pasture, you're going to have some adventures. And I started stringing my trap line around the lip of frozen Gitche Gumee, to quote Longfellow, in Lake Superior way back in the late 90s. And I was stuck in blizzards a Yeti wouldn't wander, where logging trucks threatened to bounce me into the afterlife as their ass end swung into my lane, whether it's in the Pacific Northwest or around the tip of Superior. And so that's what my adventures are about. They're about, the book is about people and place where I embrace the heartline hum and soul note that I heard singing clear across the big wide open. And I was really influenced in the early years by an NPR host. His name was Studs Terkel. I don't know if you remember Studs, but I read his books. Yeah, I read his books diligently when I was a young actor for monologues. American Dreams, Lost and Found, and Working. And of course, the one that really stuck with me was the Last Good War. And he would just go around with a tape recorder and interview people, and he just recorded their lives. It was just real people who flew below the red carpet radar. And in an age where celebrity worship has become so pernicious, I wanted to celebrate real lives, and so I did. And but when you talk about, I talk about Just for Laughs as well, the greatest and largest comedy festival in the world, when I have conversations with Billy Connolly and with Don Rickles, who hosted my first one. There's a great story with Rickles. I was doing this bit. I said, camping's fun in the daytime, but as soon as the sun goes down, everything that eats meat wakes up. I was pretty safe, though. I camped beside some Germans. God bless them, their accent will scare anything. Ich war lieben der Aus und schliegte auf und unten, lieben und schnell, upton der raus und aus des Lieben. Anyway, Rickles is backstage laughing his ass off. And I came back, and he said, that was a great set, kid. He said, I never got my first break until I was 38 years old. Kelly's Heroes, how old are you? I said, 41. He looked at me, and his face changed from a smile to a face you'd have in front of a widow who's standing in front of a closed casket of her husband. And he slapped me gently in the cheek and said, you're finished. And he walked away. But then he signed my poster and said, funny is as funny does, and you are. And that's the kind of soul collateral that you kept on the long journey.
Oh, sure.
To let you know that the work that you're doing matters. And it does matter. And for any aspiring comedians that are out there listening, look, I've been selling out theaters in Canada for the last 22 years with 9 specials, but it always starts with the first step across the threshold and a commitment to following your bliss. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, you got a great story. I was going to ask you about Don Rickles. Nobody ever better on the talk shows than Rickles.
And he was incredible, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And I quote that footage of him on Carson in '77 when Sinatra's on, chairman of the board's on. Rickles comes out, kneels down, and kisses his ring, and he says, "Hey, just wanted to tell you, Frank, Sammy Buttafuoco, 2 bullets in the head on Thursday." It's just remarkable. And Leno's Leno could never hold a candle to Johnny.
Nobody has. It hasn't been the same. No.
I was a fan of Letterman over Letterman. But no, Rickles owned it, and he never wrote anything down, right? Like Billy Connolly. It was always off the cuff. He was just always in character.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable. And of course, Rickles honed his craft in the smoke show clubs of Vegas when wise guys were coming back into the club after dumping a body in the desert. And Rickles, right? It's so wonderful.
Yeah, that type of comedy scene, those guys were forged really in like the iron mills, steel mills.
That's a great analogy. They were forged in the crucible of another day.
Yeah.
Where television and social media and the myriad number of platforms we have now to be seen didn't exist. Yep. But Doug, I have to say that, you can have as much exposure as you want on the myriad number of platforms, from TikTok to Reddit to YouTube. But at the end of the day, when you step in front of that microphone and there's a live audience of 2,000 people ready to laugh, you have to deliver in the same way that all the great comedians had to deliver in the past. There's no amount of notoriety or social media infamy that's going to carry you for your 90-minute set. I do a 2-hour set. The other night in Victoria, the capital of British Columbia, I did 2.5 hours. And the only reason I got off was because I needed to use the bathroom.
That's right. I always want to ask, when I've had a chance to talk to comedians, how do you learn the material? I mean, obviously you build it up over time, but is it there all the time? Do you have to kind of rehearse it in your head? I mean, you don't make it up as you go along all the time. You do some ad-libbing, but how do you learn an hour and a half or 2 hours of material?
It's a muscle. It's a muscle. As Carlin said, stage time, stage time, stage time. But mine goes from the page to the stage because I don't play the clubs anymore. And I've been blessed that if I write it down, I see it. So I've got that kind of photographic memory in that respect. It's a photographic memory that's married to muscle.
Right.
And then once you're on the stage, if I place myself in certain areas, I'm a very active act. And so if I place myself in a certain position on the stage, I know that piece is coming up there.
Yeah.
And I also find that if I write a piece that I can see visually in terms of the action that I've lived it, I've got a piece on being in the air, for instance, in a snowstorm for 14.5 hours. It should have taken a 3.5-hour flight.
Right.
And it's got a beginning, a middle, and an end. And if I have a story that I'm telling with a beginning, middle, and an end, I'm good.
It's there. Are you constantly writing? Little notebook?
Yeah, all the time. All the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to, because the ground is liquefying constantly. And that's the thing with comedians, is we have to connect the dots in the chaos we're all walking through in the language of laughs. And right now I'm processing a lot of the trauma we went through in COVID.
Sure.
In comedic terms.
Right.
And then I'm able to also tee off on issues that make me angry, because anger fuels the funny to a certain degree. And I've got my mileage on Trump, just as I got my mileage on my own prime minister's egregious failures, although they're totally different. But I mean, look, Canada led the world in elder deaths during COVID. 81% of the deaths at the beginning of COVID happened in private elder care facilities run by greedy Gordon Gekko corporate profiteers who hired devalued workers to care for devalued lives whose diaper hadn't been changed in a week. And these members of the greatest generation died of dehydration. And now that we've had an investigation into it, the government and the privateers have had their hands in the water faster than Pontius Pilate, washing themselves of complicity. Yeah. And as I said, come on, man, you got to get your act together. In 20 years, the bulk of the baby boom are going to be roaming the home ourselves in Led Zeppelin onesies just to sing along away from taking a stairway to heaven. So, but for me, you can talk about controversial issues as long as you land on the laugh.
Right.
And look, and comedy punches up. It doesn't punch down. I'm disappointed that Chappelle picked on transgendered people. And I know that the last people say, well, watch the entire special. I watched the entire special, but the less enlightened in the world will take what they want from something,
right,
and utilize it to how they see fit, right?
Yeah.
And you don't punch down to the disenfranchised and the marginalized. You punch up to the potentate on his golden throne. We just had a guy acquitted in Quebec named Mike Ward by the Supreme Court of Canada, who picked on a hydrocephalic kid, and because he had too much exposure in Quebec stand-up. And Quebec in Canada has a whole different angle on funny than the rest of us do. They exist in their own little bubble. And I know that the Supreme Court voted in favor of freedom of speech, but once again, it can be construed as open season by less accomplished and less compassionate comedians, and on the disenfranchised and marginalized. And I think it's our job to move the world forward to a more enlightened place in history, to move to the right side of history, not perpetuate the status quo or just satisfy your own point of view. Right, Chappelle's worth $500 million. There's better targets to pick. Come on, man.
I was going to ask you, though, in Canada, can you do political humor up there as...
Yeah, you got to be a little more... Yeah, well, you have to be an equal opportunity offender here. It's pretty hard just to pick one side because there's only 37 million of us.
Right.
And, I mean, come on, man. In America, 75 million, you still believe in the big lie.
Right.
Right? And
legally, is there an issue up there doing political humor?
Oh, not at all. They'll just go quiet on you because Canadians have a dysfunctional deference for authority. I mean, our motto is peace, order, and good government, which translates to have fun, but keep the noise down or we'll call the cops.
That's right.
Where life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness translates to hookers and blow this way, bro. It's a whole different wrinkle on the funny. And also, because you've been sired by, two revolutions, I mean, the latest one, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, and of course, the endless confrontations in the streets about issues, I think that there's more of a deference for the rebel soul. But ultimately, it boils down to population numbers. I mean, you've got 375 million people. You can have half the nation not liking your act, and you've still got 7 times the population of Canada thinking you've got something, smart to say.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of choice. But I pick on... I pick on all parties, and you have to.
Sure.
You have to, because it's you just don't have the luxury to be nonpartisan. I mean, you have to be nonpartisan. You don't have that luxury to be partisan.
I would say Johnny Carson made it by hitting both sides. You never really quite knew what his thoughts were politically, his personal thoughts, but he hit both sides equally.
It's the best way to be.
It's the way to do it.
Of course, I lean to the left. I mean, and you can tell that with my point of view. But look, I mean, the sheen's gone off the pumpkin for me and our prime minister. He's silver spoon Davis Groom Dauphin. But then the guy on the right is just an evil Gerber face baby, and with far too right affiliation. So if you can hit both of them equally, then you're going to be you're going to have longevity.
No question. Name of the book again is called All Over the Map, Rambles and Ruminations from the Canadian Road. And Ron James has been our guest today. Ron, I wish we had more time. I know you're doing some gigs, so we'll let you go now, but hopefully we can talk to you again down the road. And the book available everywhere right now, even in the States?
Everywhere right now, yeah. It's available on Amazon. It's available on in Penguin Random House, and also in Barnes & Noble across the States, and all your independent bookstores. But your best bet's probably give Jeff Bezos a few more bucks, because God knows the $280 billion
he's worth for the rockets.
Build a rocket. Yeah, you gotta love that, hey?
Well, I will let my mother know I talked to you, and we have relatives in Newfoundland, cousins, so I'm sure they're going to be happy. They'll watch this. We know that.
Always good to be talking to someone who's got Newfoundland blood, my son.
That's it. Ron, great talking to you. Hopefully we can do it again. Thanks for being with us.
You too, brother. All the best, Doug. See you now.